All right, time to introduce our next guest from the Packers UK, Stephen O'Brien. Stephen, how you doing?
How's it going, fellas? How are you?
Very well, thank you. Just
Good.
enjoying the how it progresses through day 3. It's a bit of a grind sometimes, but it's been fun. Your selection's just being announced now at 173, as I have it. Do you know who it is at the moment?
No, I don't actually. It's kind of hard to focus on the draft too. I know you lads turfed out your quarterback before the draft, which was probably a good move. Whereas for us, it's kind of gone the opposite way. Let's have a quick gander here. This is all live. Have they announced it yet? Packer selection. Leroy Butler's here talking.
I've got
Federell Slayton, defensive tackle from
tackle.
Florida.
Right.
I must
That
admit,
makes
I don't
sense.
know a huge amount about him.
Yeah, it seems to be the picks for the Packers. Good choices, boys. I don't know how the Lions seem to be playing a stormer, but the Packers are good. We seem to be addressing needs, which is good. So cornerbacks, offensive line, wide receiver. So happy days. How are you fixed with your draft? Are you fairly happy? I know it's silly to put grades on drafts, but I mean the lads that you do have at the minute, are you content?
If you'd asked us, I think when the picks were made, I don't know about you boys, but I think I was quite low on some of our picks because it's not the way I expected us to go. But having slept on it, I'm actually really, really pleased. We're building for a future where 2021 is not going to be successful, and we know that. But 2022 looks like it's going to be really strong. How about you, Stephen, Ryan? How do you think we're doing so far?
I was a bit surprised by the picks at the time because we've done our own mocks and we picked these areas for addressment, and then we were going through the rounds and we were not seeing them coming. Like we didn't see a linebacker and a wide receiver till today. So yesterday we're thinking, well, these guys are getting picked and we're going to get potentially like the leftovers. We're going to be scraping the barrel at some positions, but I think I've accepted, like you say, we're going to be playing hard, tough run ball. And we're going to be a stout defense in the middle. We're going to be built to stop the run. That is where we're going to be in the future. So that's fine because we're building foundations, in my opinion.
I really like the Penny Sewell pick. I wanted to pick up either Pitts, Chase, or Sewell, and if one of those didn't fall to us, I wanted to trade back. So the fact that we were able to pick up Sewell, I think it was the right thing to do, and that was a great pick. But I think then we all thought it was going to be like a linebacker or like a safety or a wide receiver because these are our biggest needs. And the fact that he just has gone in a different way and is building both offensive and defensive lines, I think kind of like threw us a bit. But that's why we're not NFL GMs. We're fans on a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think after we've slept on it, we all feel a lot better. And also having read, because there were some big names still on the board when we made our number 2 and number 3 pick. So maybe flashier picks, but the fact that he's like not picked them, but he's got a plan. We want a GM with a plan, not a GM that makes knee-jerk, short-term reactions. So I think that's the pleasing thing.
Yeah.
Just to ask Stephen, we'll come on to Rodgers later, but you said you're happy in that you're addressing needs. On day 1, so pick 29, Eric Stokes, and then Myers at 62, the centre, and Amari Rodgers at 85, the wide receiver, your day 1 and day 2 picks. I love Rodgers. I think he's going to be a really good pick for you. But Myers and Stokes day 1 starter, extremely fast, competitive, bit handsy at times.
Yeah.
You have a fair amount of cornerbacks. You've reassigned Kevin King, and I know he hasn't been everything that you wanted, but he had a good year last year, apart from one game, I would say. But Myers especially, I felt like I think he's a reach. I think he's a big reach. How do you feel on your picks in general in terms of whether they're reaches or whether you think they're going to play day 1? Or tell us a bit more about them.
Yeah, so I mean, they're good picks. I'm always sort of, and I know this grinds people's gears when they say, "Oh, the GMs and they know what they're doing," because people are like, "Oh, look at all these players they got wrong," and we keep getting haunted with draft picks in the past that we missed all the way back to Tony Mandarich, for God's sake, way back when. I mean, people just kill us over that, but it's hindsight is 2020. Stokes. That's the only concern with him for me is the handsiness because we brought in Josh Jackson. That was his criticism, and he never got over it. So sometimes what you'll find is some of these defensive players are quite good because they get away with some stuff in college that you can't get away with in the pros. Look, again, that's ringing the alarm bell too early. Eric Stokes seems like a fantastic player. Down to Myers, again, slight bit of a reach. Amari Rogers, again, slight bit of a reach. Not saying that they're not good players, they're great players, but they were probably going to be available later on too, especially trading up for Rogers as well. So to be honest though, I'm happy because cornerback, we have Jair Alexander, who's sort of proven almost to be a shutdown corner at this stage. I mean, he's one of the top graded on PFF. So we did need a guy to complement that. Kevin King is coming in for his redemption year. Like you said, he flashes hot and cold. It's either a splash play, an interception in the end zone, or he's given up a massive play. And that really hurt us. I mean, we were 6 points away from the Super Bowl, And again, it's unfair to lay that loss solely at his feet. It never works out that way. You and I know that. But at the end of the day, I mean, when you're exposed on a big play like that, unfortunately, it does sort of hang over you for the foreseeable. So that's what we have with Kevin King. Also, it's telling that he tested the waters and ended up floating back onto the side of the Fox River, the Green Bay. He tested the market and there wasn't one for him. Also, he has injury history, pretty bad ones too. So Eric Stokes, he's going to come in with the amount of packages that we play that isn't base defense, which is a lot. We need guys who are kind of hybrid linebacker style, DBs that can move around. This guy seems to really fit the bill. Josh Myers, we need a center. We've other guys that we can move in there. Elton Jenkins is a Pro Bowler. We could move him in there, but we don't really want to. So again, this is a guy who could contribute, as you say, almost straight away. So
I thought with them losing Corey Linsley,
yeah,
you might have made your picks the other way around, because obviously you need a center kind of like now. And I think Creed Humphrey was still on the board when you picked Stokes. So
yeah. That surprised people, and he was still there when they picked Myers, I believe, as well. So I mean, he was still on the board when Myers came off. So, but that's the thing, you don't know how to evaluate talent is really the thing. Creed Humphreys was someone that here we were really high on, and we were kind of shocked when they went with Myers. But the thing is, if you look at the Packers' history with O-linemen from the days of James Campen, who's the O-line coach, who then moved on, they do really well with O-linemen for some reason, even late draft picks. We had the best center. You look at Elton Jenkins, the way they move him up and down the line. You look at Corey Linsley, we couldn't pay him, and that's the only reason that he left. But that's the thing, we developed these guys to lose them. Now, we managed to keep hold of David Bakhtiari, thankfully. Again, the blind side being the most important position. That's why there. But we've had it for, I don't know how long now. Guys that went off to the Browns, for instance, who sort of flip-flopped in and out. We've had TJ Lang of the past, Josh Sitton of the past, all these boys that we had that ended up being like Pro Bowlers. They were fantastic fellas. You'll be familiar with TJ Lang, I guess. So that's the thing is, look, Myers seems like a bit of a reach, but it's literally that meme, that take my money meme, is that if you have a guy in college who was versatile and moved up and down the line at multiple positions, the Packers can go for him all day long, because they like these guys that they can slot in, because for forever we've seen, like going back to the days of Brian Balaga, which wasn't that long ago, everyone was being shifted up and down the line. That's how David Bakhtiari ended up in the position that he was in fact, was he took over from Balaga when Balaga got injured. So that's what we do. Lads get injured, we plug other guys in. It almost suddenly works straight away, and then we're on and laughing. Same happened with Lane Taylor, who since went to the Texans. It's guys you don't expect to step up, but they do. So I think we trust it's a really boring topic, for people who aren't anoraks, of course, to be banging on about the O-line. But yeah, look, we trust our O-line coaches in Green Bay. They've always sort of, I thought that was James Campen back in the day because he was a wizard. But since, he's been taken over now, it's still fantastic. So I trust him, which means that we could sort of go for Eric Stokes, because that's the thing, is that it's always the way with Green Bay. One year we get pressure up front and we fall apart on the back end, and then the other time we have dynamic play from Jair, but we've no one to help Kenny Clark up front. So it's just one of those conundrums. So now at least we've plugged that hole, hopefully, a cornerback. We've got a center who can fit in there. Royce Newman's coming in as well, who's seen as a contributor. And then, of course, a slot receiver who is similar to Randall Cobb, who will know you guys were terrorized by him. The Bears famously massively terrorized by him. So this is a guy who's cut from the same cloth. So I like the decisions that they've went with. And But if you look at the Packers, and again, I know I'm a guest on, so I don't mind talking too much ad nauseum, and I'm also Irish, so I've kissed the Blarney Stone plenty of times. But if you look at
it's a dangerous combination.
It is. It's terrible, especially for Americans. They usually just look at me going, "I've no idea what he's saying." Something's coming out of his mouth. I think it's some sort of language, but I'm not sure if it's English. The thing is that last year we saw the draft kind of get away from them. We feel a bit, they went for the quarterback, which we're facing ramifications potentially for now. We make a reach for a running back who will probably be fantastic, but we could have probably got him later. The Packers were high on him. Josiah DeGuara at a tight end, we kind of reached for him. So that's kind of how our draft went. Obviously, the Packers have some sort of grades on these players that we don't see. And these are guys who are scouting them as their career, so we can sort of trust them what they're doing. But like you alluded to at the very beginning, some of these, are they a bit of a reach potentially on where we had their value placed as well? But look, if DeGuara works out, AJ Dillon works out with Jamal Williams now gone, well, then we can sort of, bed down, trust the organization. They might reach a little bit, but the value is probably there, because if they're a perfect scheme fit for your team, they might not be the best player on the board, let's say, but they're the best player for your team, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Greater than the sum of your parts. Just on the O-line quickly, one of the most frustrating things for me was seeing Rick Wagner come here and be ultimately poor and overpaid, and then go to you, underpaid, and perform very well compared to how I think the expectation of him was. Just on Jamal Williams, you mentioned he's gone, and obviously he's come here, and Tim Boyle as well. What are your thoughts on both of them? Jamal is an absolute character, but tell us a bit more of that then.
Yeah, he's a good locker room guy. Jamal Williams is a good attitude. He's always positive. And, these are the intangibles that people snooze on. You look at him and you're like, oh, God, who cares? Yes, he does these dances and he's a happy guy. These interviews are always give you a little soundbite to use. But he's a fantastic player. He might not be an every down back, but he was certainly a massive contributor to what we were doing in Green Bay. He's a good blocker. He was a great compliment to Aaron Jones. He stepped in when he was needed. He's an absolute workhorse. Added to that is the bonus that he dances very well, and he gets the morale up of the players. He's a great locker room guy, though. But this is a guy who, there was a time in Green Bay where they were because you have to remember, and again, it's I suppose it's hard to do when you aren't Packer fans, but he came in ahead of Aaron Jones in the draft, and he was ahead of him in the depth chart. And it was only that he got injured and Ty Montgomery got injured that Aaron Jones even got his chance. So even from the beginning, he was kind of evaluated to be a better player, a big-bodied back. You just have a gem in him. Boyle there's kind of a joke around Green Bay that he was going to take over Aaron Rodgers' spot. He was very popular in the quarterback room. He gets complex offenses. And again, he's a cannon of an arm. So look, I'm not expecting that he'll come in and be, competing with the starter, but I wouldn't put it past him either, to be fair, because he is a very good player. But we'll have to see if he gets a case of the Matt Flynn's. So if you remember him, he sat behind Rodgers. He torched a couple of teams, ended up getting paid massive money, and then it turned out that it didn't work out on other teams. So, was Boyle just a great fit in Green Bay because he had the chance to sit behind Rodgers and that greatness? Maybe. But he still has an awful lot of talent. So it's two guys to be excited about, to be honest. They might seem like no-name players, and who are they? And, but you'll get some good sound bites, some good play, and probably some good backup quarterback play too.
Yeah, the Packers are just selecting a player now, and it's someone I don't recognise, cornerback from Alapetian State, John Charles?
Not sure.
Yeah.
Appalachian State, but I don't know the corner.
Well, if people, and this is a shameless plug, but if people want to go into the website, dare you do it as a Lions fan, but ukpackers.co.uk, there's a draft guide there. It's 319 pages, and it has profiles of all the top players, the top 300, by a great man called Peter Jones. So by all means, dive in there. And when names like this come up that you're not familiar with, Peter has them all broken out to what his strengths and weaknesses are, where he should have went in the NFL. So it's a great guide there. It's completely free. It's very Packer centric in the sense that we pick out players that will go to the Packers, but it's definitely applicable to everything. So, anyone who's looking for it, by all means, go on and check it out. I'm surprised you haven't brought up Rodgers, lads, because as Lions fans, I thought the boot will be stuck in straight away.
I'm
just dying to, but I think we've kept a respectful pause before we do it. So,
reverence.
I just want to read out a tweet from Greg Rosenthal from the Around the NFL podcast. And he tweeted yesterday, "If the Packers won't trade Rodgers, I just hope that they finally get him some help beyond his all-pro left tackle, his all-pro wide receiver, his top 10 running back, his 26-6 record coach, and the top scoring offense in the NFL." What are your thoughts on that shade that Mr. Rosenthal has thrown Rodgers' way.
It's correct. You can't go against it. You see, this is the thing, right? Is with Rodgers, he is fantastic. But like with all people who are geniuses in their field, and I don't use that word lightly, it comes along with a certain baggage. And with Rodgers and with most quarterbacks, there's an ego there, but you prefer your quarterback to have an ego because if they don't, they tend not to last that long. Rodgers is undoubtedly a fantastic player. But what I would preface with all of this is we haven't heard from him yet. And I'm not copping out because I'll tell you how I really feel about it, right? But that's not a cop out. But what I would say is all of this is media assumption. Now, if you go onto my personal profile on Twitter, you'll see sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing. And that's what we've got from Rodgers. We haven't got anything. So his name is being dragged heavily. His organization, his employer is being dragged heavily. It's caused a schism through the fan base, through the media. People are looking for clickbait. And yet we haven't got anything from him. He's at the Kentucky Derby having a great time. So, that to me, the thing is, I understand he shouldn't have to address rumors because where do you draw the line, But at the same, and again, he's been on the Pat McAfee show giving his insight saying, I let the media do what they want. It's funny. I sit back and laugh. But to me, if someone called me a murderer and I didn't say anything, you'd suspect there's something off about it. You'd check your knife drawers, to see what's in them. So it's the same with him. If you're saying that this is an ego thing, he doesn't want to play for the Packers. Ultimately, he cannot care as kind of a businessman if you want, what the sort of fans think about him. Because Wayne Rooney used to frequent some pretty odd places, but once he started banging in goals, people forgot about his off the field stuff, and there was pretty bad stuff. So when you look at Rodgers, he knows he's MVP. He has an awful lot of capital with fans and with media and with football heads. He's, to me, metric-wise, the best quarterback ever, or at least one of them, because Super Bowls aren't a quarterback stat. We can get into that debate, but let's just park it. But certainly he's played and operated at a very high level for a long time.
Can I just say, for legal reasons, that we've in no way insinuated that Aaron Rodgers has had any sexual relations with a grandmother?
Indeed. It's I draw the parallel there, but what I would say is that if he's soured the fan base,
as far as we know, anyway,
right? If you can sort of sour the fan base, but you can bring them back on your side. And look, he's been with the team for 16 years now, and he put up with the Favre situation, which is really interesting because it does draw a parallel. Here's the media. I can't address what Aaron thinks because I don't know, right? But I will address the fact that he hasn't said anything, and me personally, I think that's damning. Because he needs to come out. I'm joking about it being really sarcastic on my own Twitter. I'm just saying, if only there was a way he could communicate with the public, if only they invented some sort of social media platform. The guy has 4.4 million followers on Twitter. He has X amount of people on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. So he could get the word out there. Now, I don't mind that he has gripes with the Packers. He can do that. He's winning his rights to do it. He can voice his opinion. He can voice his displeasure. But he's letting the media swirl and go mental, and he hasn't come out and tried to clarify any position. Even if he comes out and says, look, I'm not happy, we're working through it, don't worry about it, he could easily squash some stuff, but he hasn't done it yet. Here's what I would say is Greg Rosenthal, that's my view. I don't know if Aaron's problem is the fact that he wasn't hashtag surrounded with talent, right? But he does have Robert Tonyan, tight end. He tied Kelsey with the top amount of touchdowns for a tight end last year.
Had a fantastic season. And
unbelievable.
Alan Lazard as well is way underrated.
He is, and he got injured. This is a guy who was a free agent, and then he comes on to the Packers, and he was trying to become the bona fide number 2, but he got injured randomly and had to get surgery, so he was out. Now, look, the thing, it's funny, right? So here's the argument. All of these players that Devontae Adams is probably one of, if not the best wide receiver in the league. You can argue with stats and all this. He missed games, but he still broke milestones in Packers history last year. Aaron Jones, he's not the sexy name, so people don't talk about him. However, you look at him and his stats, he was up there with the Carolina Panthers with the running back play. Literally, if you look at his touchdowns and all that kind of stuff. You look at the production Tonyan gave. MVS is inconsistent. And that's true. He drops balls. He does some really boneheaded stuff. However, he is one of the top in the NFL for 40+ yard receptions. So he might be inconsistent, but if you sleep on him, he will punish you. Aaron Rodgers is surrounded with talent. He's got the best left tackle in the game. Elton Jenkins is a Pro Bowler in his O-line. His O-line gives him time. So if this is about the fact that they don't surround him in talent, they were the top scoring offense last year, and he was the MVP. You cannot argue that he doesn't have weapons. Now, the argument is, but he's Aaron Rodgers. He makes everyone good. Yeah, that's what he's supposed to do. He's getting paid. He's getting paid to be a good quarterback. We know what his talent is. He's supposed to perform at that talent. He cannot expect to have Odell Beckham Jr. or one of these big names in there and just to be throwing 50-50 balls up willy-nilly. We play to his strengths because he is who he is. If I had Einstein on my team and work, you're damn sure I'd give him difficult problems. I wouldn't sort of say he's Einstein, but he needs more people around him. You'd say he's capable of doing more than most. And that's the way it is with Aaron Rodgers. So this notion of that he's not surrounded by talent and we haven't taken people in the first round, last year proved we didn't need to. So he proved himself wrong if his argument was, which I'm not saying it is, that they didn't surround him with talent. Now, he did come out and say that he needed tequila and, you know, he had to sit back and booze because of the pick for Jordan Love and all this type of stuff. It's as simple as this, right? Tom Brady is playing for as long as he can, and he fended off Jimmy Garoppolo, and we've seen how that panned out. If you play at an MVP level, your team won't get rid of you.
Yeah.
Also, it's a business. So Gutekunst took over from Ted Thompson. Ted Thompson had Aaron Rodgers land on his lap, and that will always be his legacy, that he set up the franchise after Brett Favre with another Hall of Fame quarterback. Gutekunst now is after coming in, and he has that task, but he has it in the same way that the Packers have had it for a long time, where we are drafting at the end of the first round all the time. So what draft capital do you have to give up? And people are living in la-la land if they think, oh, sure, just give them next year's first and move up to select Trevor Lawrence. You literally have to mortgage your franchise on someone that seems to be a good fit, but sometimes they aren't.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look at the other quarterbacks that were taken in the first round that really didn't pan out, and they've been traded around the league this year. You know, Sam Darnold and all these players. Sometimes it just doesn't work out, and you think it's going to work out, but hindsight again is 2020.
So the thing is, do you think that there's a disconnect between Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur? Because Matt LaFleur's come out and said this week that he didn't know about the Jalen the Jordan Love pick. Yeah, he didn't know about the pick, and it's almost like he's showing sort of implicit support for Rodgers in terms of that, you know, it was out of his hands and it was the front office that made the pick. Do you think there's a bit of a schism between LaFleur?
I don't know. Well, what I would say is, what is LaFleur supposed to say? He's the one who has to look Rodgers in the face and give him his play calls. Remember, right? McCarthy was catapulted out of Green Bay mid-season, which is totally against what Green Bay are about. They don't do that. They keep coaches for a long time, and we've got a good heritage of coaches. We've sucked for a long time in the 80s, but they still stuck by lads like Bart Starr and Forrest Gregg and all these people. So they launched him out. And remember the stories that came out after that, McCarthy calling a play call and Aaron Rodgers would roll his eyes and he'd undermine him. So you're dealing with a player who is amazing. He's the top of his level, but he's no problem undermining his head coach. So if you're dealing with a guy who has, like, dare I say, not personality issues, but it's out there. He's admitted that he was, you know, he could have treated stuff differently. And the media in Green Bay say that, you know, McCarthy's death knell was when Rodgers criticized him after the Buffalo game. And after that, he was untenable and he left. So if you're Matt LaFleur, you want to be on the same page as your quarterback. So he's always going to be a personality guy. Gutekunst, there's that whole debate. Did he have to tell Matt LaFleur who he was drafting? As a GM, it's nice if he does, but he doesn't have to.
No.
Now, again, I'm not saying that's right by any means, right? He didn't run the Jordan Love pick past Aaron Rodgers. Doesn't have to, right? Now, should he have? Maybe. Would it have made a difference to how Rodgers would feel about it? No. If you're going out with someone and they turn around and say to you, I'm going to cheat on you tonight, or they go out and cheat on you, you know, like, are you going to go, oh yeah, work away, have fun, go on out there, enjoy yourself, hon, don't worry about it.
Thanks for telling me.
Thanks for telling me. Yeah, it makes me feel so much better that you're just going to go ahead and do it anyway. And that's exactly what it is. Now, I don't know. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. But what I am saying is that it's up to Gutekunst whether he told him or not. Now, he didn't, and he says that that's a mistake, and he's owned up to it. And Aaron Rodgers it's completely his prerogative whether he wants to be annoyed about it. I'm not taking that away from him. He can react how he wants to react. However, Gutekunst's job is to you know, get the franchise moving into the future. Aaron Rodgers came out as well very maturely and said he cannot control what happens. So he can't control the fact they have Jordan Love. The only thing he can do is play well. And he did play well. And he is an MVP. And I don't think there's been no team in NFL history that have traded their MVP after his MVP season. So as long as he keeps putting in good quarterback play, there's absolutely nothing the Packers will do to move on from him. It would be madness.
It would be madness. Well, just to say, we are running out of time. I know that the Vikings fan that we're going to have on actually came in about 15 minutes ago, and I told him to go away. We're still with the Packers man. Yeah. So he's going to be coming in a couple of minutes. But is there anything else you just want to touch on before you go, Stephen?
No, not really. Look, it's great to talk to you. I know we might seem like rivals, and the Lions, like, they suck. I mean, we all have to admit that in here, okay? But again, I'm not really want to talk when my whole team is in complete turmoil now. But it's great to hook up with you. I'd love to have you on the UK Packers podcast, which is the big fancy logo smack to the wall here, to get you on to trash my team twice a year. So if you'll oblige and come on, maybe just to break down the strengths and weaknesses, and maybe treat our listeners to a bit of a state of the NFC North Lions pre-run, just to show us what your team have done in the off season, how you're feeling about it, and all that kind of stuff. Because look, at quarterback, we're going through a lot of change, boys. I mean, let's be our own support group, okay? Let's stay in contact. Help me.
Sounds good to us, man. Thank you very much for that. We'd love to do that. So give us a shout as and when.
Will do. Thanks, boys.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Stephen.
Cheers. Bye.